the golden ticket right now.
Strategies for multiple offers.
Ooh, strategies for multiple offers. How many of you have been in multiple offer situations? Has anybody not been in multiple offer situations? And if so, is it because you're not writing any offers? Yeah, that's probably why, right? Because you're not doing the offers yet. But yes, most properties are seeing multiple offers now. Yeah, most of them are seeing multiple offers, right? So how about any of you on Zoom? If you want to type in the chat box, if there's anything that you're challenged with right now, or you want to make sure we cover today, go ahead and type it in there, and I'll take a look at that and make sure that we are covering everything everybody wants to know. Everything. Anybody want to know how to potty train their 2-year-old? Yeah. Anybody want to know how to break up with that guy that, no? Okay, I can help you. I'm telling you. Yeah, vast knowledge here, vast knowledge. Okay, those of you on Zoom are going to watch the screens through this camera, so I'm hoping that it comes out clear. If not, I will send you the PowerPoint later so you can see it. I'll send you the slides, and so you can take a look. And without further ado, buzzing, isn't that great? Okay, there we go, challenges. Okay, so let's talk buyer specific. You mentioned some things that are challenging with buyers in this market, right? Multiple offers, first-time home buyers struggling, cash buyers, interest rates rising, things going under contract real quickly. They don't have time to go out and see them, right? I've written down some things, and just so you know, for this class in preparation, some of this is just my own experience, but also I reached out to several of the top agents in our office here that do a lot of transactions to ask them what they're seeing, what they see as the biggest challenges. So this list is a compilation of what real agents are seeing out in the real market right now. So we're looking at things like buyers being unrealistic about the market, right? Not fully qualified to purchase, no sense of urgency. Oh, I'll just make an offer tomorrow. We're going to think about it. Want to see homes that aren't qualified, meaning they may not meet their actual criteria, or they may not be qualified for the loan product that they're using. Rapid appreciation. The prices are going up. They're going up fast. Anybody know how much they went up in Hillsborough County last year?
2% a month.
What?
2% a month.
Almost, yeah. About 20% last year in Hillsborough County, right? For single family homes. Yeah, about 20%. It's crazy. Don't want to overpay. I really like the house, but I don't want to overpay. I think the bubble's going to burst, right? There are people saying that a year ago. Now look, what if it bursts? So what? They've still got 20% appreciation. They've got a lot of equity in their homes already in just a year. Don't want to overpay. Rising interest rates. We already mentioned that. Competing with multiple offers. Paulette, you brought that up. Cash or high down payment buyers. So by that we mean cash buyers or people who can put down a large down payment. So their offers are more competitive even if they're financing. No extra funds. So they have just enough to qualify, but if that appraisal comes in short, they don't have any money to make up the gap. If there's anything else that needs to happen along the way, they don't have any extra funds, right? They can't go over the list price. They can't make up an appraisal gap. They can't pay for their own repairs if anything comes up on inspections, right? So they don't have enough extra cash to compete. Holding deals together. So even though things are going under contract pretty quickly, anybody have any trouble holding deals together? You see them transactions falling apart where they don't normally, they're not closing maybe. So you've seen some of that, Rochelle?
Yeah, I actually had on this last, because I closed last week. Initially, everything was good to go. The VA, I got in, I got surprised, and so that went through, and everything was fine. And about 3 weeks prior to, I got a call from the lender, and they were like, "We didn't know your person was retiring." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I've known you. We talked about this.
Yeah.
We missed it. We qualified them as full on activity continuing, and anyway, they had enough money there. It worked out, but we were 3 weeks out.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like everything was done.
So it closed though.
It closed.
It closed because some people came together, made some phone calls, thought outside the box, asked, so what, well, we'll talk about that in a minute about how you can try to prevent to anticipate and prevent things like that happening, right? So, and sometimes you can't, things come up, and then we got to get creative, and then we got to become problem solvers. So that's a great example. I've seen that actually quite a bit with deals that don't close, even though everybody's so anxious to buy. Sometimes they just jump into an offer, and then they're like, oh, I don't really know. This may not be what I want. Okay, so holding deals together. Appraisal issues. Anybody seeing any appraisal issues? Yeah, a little bit, right? Inspection issues. Things come up on inspection, and the seller says, oh, I sold it as is. I'm not going to fix anything. Buyer says, I'm not going to buy that, right? So there can be inspection issues. And then just keeping the buyers in the game. What if they've made multiple offers on multiple properties and they're just burnt out? They're frustrated, they're fed up. What do you do, right? Okay, so these some issues. Anything else? Does that cover it pretty well?
I want to bring something up.
Okay.
That happened to me last week. I had 22 offers on a listing.
Okay.
And one of those 22 offers came in the night before. He called me directly.
Mhm.
Listing, he gave me the price. I was
Okay.
very discreet.
Yep.
And he calls me the next morning and he says, please pull my offer because I've been writing offers all over town and I got accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Not using the same realtor. So the
Right.
challenge is, and what I have learned after 8 years in the business, my time is very valuable.
Yes, and
I am going to start using the buyer contract.
oh, yes. Has anybody here been in a basic real estate class where they did not tell you to get a buyer agreement signed? No, everybody always says get a buyer agreement signed, but what happens? We don't legally have to do it, and we don't want to push them, and we don't want to feel like, so we don't do it. Now look what happens. Then they go buy a house with somebody else. If you have that exclusive buyer agreement and they buy a house with somebody else, you have a claim on that commission from them, from the customer, right? And when you make sure they understand that when they sign that document, are they going to run off with 16 different realtors?
And I guess if they're scared to ask, if the buyer says, no, I'm not signing anything, then that's your cue.
Yeah, that's right. If a buyer won't sign it, that's a good cue. That's exactly right.
You're absolutely.
And we're going to talk about that in a minute because we're going to talk a little bit more about buyers and address that.
And with that said, let me refer you to another agent.
That's right. Here, you can work with somebody who's not going to make you do that. I'll take a 25% commission without all the hassle, right? Referral fee. Yes, ma'am.
One more thing.
Uh-huh.
I also put an offer in on a house owned by a big company. It was the most difficult paperwork
Yeah,
to fill out.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All their information, which I give, but then they were like, what about you? Tell us about when you were 5. And I was like, this is too much information.
Yeah.
No, I'm exaggerating.
She's exaggerating that part, but they
no,
do want a lot.
it
They do want a lot of
truly
personal
was.
information.
It truly
Yeah.
was.
If you sell a home that's owned by, it could be any big investment, but it's also Zillow. I know. So it's Zillow, or it's a big iBuyer, or it is a bank. If it's a foreclosure, there's always additional and different paperwork than what we see in normal contracts. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what about with sellers? So some of our challenges with sellers are finding and signing listings, unrealistic expectations about the market. They think they don't have to prepare their home for sale. Oh, anything's selling in this market. I don't need to fix that. I don't need to stage it. I don't need to spruce it up. It'll sell. Yep, sure will. Not for as much as you'd like for it to, but it'll sell. Lack of knowledge about pricing. Everything's selling for way over list. My neighbor sold for. New construction down the street is selling for, right? So they have a lot of idea, maybe misinformation about pricing. Commission objections. Anybody that's actually listing homes right now seeing some pushback from sellers on commission rates?
That's high.
Yeah,
That's high.
that's high. Yeah, what are you going to do to earn that? You know what? That's actually a really good question. What are you going to do to earn that? Who can do some math for me quick? What if the average sale price is $400,000 and the average commission is about 2.5%? How much is that? What are you going to do for that $10,000? Give me my firstborn child. Please take my firstborn child. No, yeah. So right. So it's a good question, right? It's a valid question in the seller's mind, right? So if you're asking for 12,000 or whatever, it doesn't matter. You guys, can. We're all one brokerage here, so we can talk about it. But it is a challenge right now. Well, somebody said they do it for 1.5. Yeah, take that deal. No. Who knows, right? It's obviously coming up right now. Yes.
I walked away from a prospective listing. She wanted me to take it for 3%, and I said no.
A total listing.
And
Yeah.
I walked away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we all have our standards, right? Somebody's going to take that deal, aren't they?
Someone took that.
Absolutely. Someone took that deal.
That was me.
That's good. You're a funny fan. Oh, that's funny.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I know you are.
Finding and purchasing a new home. We brought that up. Where am I going to go? Right. Deciphering multiple offers, evaluating them. Don't see the need to negotiate. They might get a good offer in and that's not what I want. Or they get an offer in that's full price. They go, no, it's not good enough. Anybody had that? Yeah. Listed, got their list price and wouldn't take it. Right. It's a weird market.
I just read the MLS criteria.
Yeah.
And it says if the seller has a home on the market and they have an asking price, if somebody offers an asking price, and they don't take it, they have to immediately take it off the MLS.
Yeah. So that's an MLS rule. It's not a statute. And I don't know if it says price. I think it used to say the terms offered in MLS. So they have to meet all the terms that are in the MLS. And so you probably can fight it most of the time because there may be a term that they're not meeting. They're asking for something else. And the problem with that whole thing with MLS is that all the terms in the contract are not listed in the MLS listing. So there's no way for you to know. So they could make a full price offer and then want a 90-day closing date and the seller doesn't accept it. So I think that you've got a valid fight on your hands. But again, I'm not an attorney. So if you have a question like that, go to a licensed Florida real estate attorney.
Opportunity to maybe have an open house, just kind of see what kind of offers come in.
Yeah.
But then I read down the MLS, like that's what I looked at.
Yeah, it is a thing. And there are some agents who will fight it, but if you go to Florida legally, a seller does not have to accept any offer, even if it meets all of the listing offer criteria.
So let me just ask really quick.
That's an MLS thing. So you have to fight them on it.
Ever since it happened.
Yeah.
So my buyers, the ones I have now still looking, made a full price offer for $489.9.
Okay.
Okay. No inspection, no nothing. It
Yep.
was cash.
Okay.
Listing agent, oh, so sorry, blah, blah, blah. I kept an eye on it. Now under sold, it
Mhm.
went for $457.
Okay.
And it was her buyer.
Yeah.
Is that really all that ethical?
Yes,
It is.
absolutely. 100%. Now if she reduced her commission because of it, we don't know, right? But if she does, then she should have marked variable commission in the listing on MLS so that everybody has fair knowledge that she may be taking less, which would change the seller's net proceeds. Right? So you have to do that. And even then, you don't know all the terms of the contract and you don't know if that was the contract price or if it was reduced after an appraisal or after inspections as a concession or something like that. You generally don't know enough information.
I just saw that. and my
I know
buyers
it, but
saw
your blood boils and you get frustrated because it's
They
yeah.
lost out 30,000. What's up with that?
Right.
I
Yeah.
did. I didn't want to be that person.
Yeah. Kathy Griggs will call you. Yeah.
They accepted an appraised offer or excuse me, a financed offer $20,000 higher and came in 15,000 less than our cash offer had.
30. I don't know. I just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Ask. Absolutely.
just don't understand,
So, yes, and we're going to cover more of that. So that's awesome. Don't see the need to negotiate. Not familiar with financing types. Right? How many of you have heard, oh, I'm not going to take a VA loan?
VA should be like, I think, first come.
Do you think that's
You
just
know,
ignorance on the?
Yes.
agent?
I think it's ignorance on the part of the agents and the general public about what a VA loan is, who's qualified for it, what it means. Because they say, oh, it's zero down, or oh, the appraisals are harder, or all that. And actually, it's not true. There are a couple of things that can be more challenging on the appraisal inspection, and this is what the lenders can speak to, because there are certain criteria that have to be met, but it's not that different from any home that's
But
being
it's the listing
financed.
agent that is advising that seller
That's
that-
right. That's right. And well, we'll talk about that. We're going to get our solutions in just a minute, but that is a thing, right? It is a thing for sure. Let's see, holding deals together. Again, as a listing agent, you have some struggles for the seller, holding the deals together. Appraisal issues, inspection issues, terminated contracts, right? A lot of these are the same as the buyer issues, aren't they? And the fascinating thing is, a lot of these are the same issues we have no matter what the market is. So it's not really a new class, right? We will talk specifically about solutions for some of these that are issues right now today, but really, isn't it always challenging to find listings and sign listings, right? Aren't sellers always fussing about commissions? Right? Don't they always kind of hesitate about preparing their phone? I mean, not always every single time, but don't a lot of them hesitate about having to do things to prepare their home for sale? Don't they always have to find another place to live? Yeah, so a lot of these things are always challenges. Maybe not multiple offers, but then the challenge is in a different market, getting an offer. The market, who remembers the days, 4, 5, 6 months on the market, no offers. Or lots of lowball offers. We didn't see offers over list price. They were significantly under, right? There's always a challenge, always a challenge. So what are we going to do about this? Now, this is where online, you may not see this too well, but I'm going to read them. So take some notes. We're going to first talk about defining the market. So part of being a real estate professional is having market expertise. So you need to know what market you're in to understand what the challenges will be and how you're going to react to them, what solutions you're going to find. So you need to know about market cycles. What is a market cycle?
Where it goes from seller market to buyer's market to,
Yeah,
it just goes on, it's always circle.
it's always cycling, right?
Cycling.
It's always cycling, and the cycle changes a little bit. Sometimes it's a shorter cycle, sometimes it's a larger cycle. Right now, we are probably in the longest running sellers market since we've been recording buyers and sellers markets. So what, just as definition, when we talk about buyers markets and sellers markets, we describe that based on the inventory and how quickly it's being sold or absorbed, right? So a seller's market is when we have less than 5 months of inventory. A buyer's market is when we have more than 7 months of inventory. And a balanced market's that 5 to 7 months range. That's really where that's kind of the sweet spot. It's also kind of boring and it doesn't last very long. It shifts from a buyer's market to a seller's market. And when we say months inventory, what does that mean? That's if we were selling all the inventory that we had in 1 month, or we were selling all the inventory we had, how many months would it take depending on how many we're selling per month? So a simple example I like to use is, let's say we have 10 houses on the market, 10 properties for sale, and we're selling 2 per month. How many months will it take us to sell those 10 homes if nothing else comes on the market? 5 months, right? That means we have 5 months of inventory. Anybody know how much inventory we have in Hillsborough County right now?
2 weeks.
That's about right. It's 0.6 months. Less than half a month, or more, just a little more than half a month, 0.6. Yeah. That's not good. That's not good for anybody, right? except for somebody who wants to sell right now today, maybe. But even then, they got to go buy something else, right? So it's really not a healthy market. It's exciting. Exciting is not always healthy, right? So market cycles. Now that can happen over years. We've been in an appreciating market since about 2012. 2008, the market dropped and it dropped. It hit the bottom price-wise in 2010. And then 2010 to 2012, it was fairly stable, where it was icky and messy and yucky and short sales and foreclosures. And, even people who were selling, had equity and could sell their homes, couldn't sell it for what they needed to or wanted to because all the other foreclosures and short sales. I know Kathy and Jan remember that fondly. It was fun, right? A different market, still challenges, right? There's always challenges. So now we've been appreciating since about 2012. 10 years is a long time. Most housing market cycles are 6 to 9 years. And we're at 10 years right now. We thought last year it was going to level off. Oh no, we just keep going 20 more %. Crazy. But it's okay. It's where we're at. Now we also have different kinds of cycles. We have that's more of a annual cycle, a long-term cycle. We have seasonal cycles. So it doesn't show that much right now in our market because our inventory is so short. It's causing us to have a lot of sales every month. But typically, if we're in a more balanced market, we're going to see our sales in our area be really low in January and February. And then the number of sales start to tick up. March, April, May, June, July, August are really high. September to October level off and kind of drop off a little bit in November. And then usually we have a little spike in December. That would be our normal market cycle on an annual basis in our area. Much of that is driven by the school year, right? And then also by the end of the year, people like to get things done by the 31st of December each year. So that drives some of that. Inventory, we talked about that a little bit already, right? If you're knowing your market, you know if it's low inventory, high inventory, how quickly it's being absorbed, how many days things are, we'll say that in just a minute, but your price trends, are values going up or down? Because you don't want to chase them, right? You don't want to chase, especially on a down market. When this all levels out, and it will, and maybe even dips a little bit, you don't want to be up here trying to get this price when the prices are going down this way, right? That's when we have to re-educate sellers about what's happening in the market. Right now, if the seller says, hey, I want to get $550 for my house, and you go, it's only worth $5, put it on the market and find out. Who knows? You might get $550 or more. We just did that. Put one on the market for $600 that, well, ended up going on $625. I thought it was, the numbers showed $550, $575, right? The seller wants $600. And then right before they go, well, let's just put it on for $625 and see what happens. I'm like, okay, here we go. Well, I said, well, we're going to know within 2 weeks.
A smart person told me what time the market was at 55.
That's true. A very smart person told you that, right? And that same smart person might have told you what's the number one factor or influence in marketing a home. It's also the price, right? If the price isn't right, if the price is right, you can sell it. If the price isn't right, you're not going to sell it. Doesn't matter how pretty it is. Doesn't matter how much lipstick you put on the pig. It's not going to sell if it's not the right price, right? So yeah, so this house that we just put under contract for $650 and some change, right? I saw $550, $575 in the numbers. Thankfully, it's a cash offer, so you don't have to worry about the appraisal. They didn't have one. Okay. Did that buyer care they were paying $50,000 more than probably what the value is? No, because nobody really knows what the value is, right? In this market, when things are changing so much, you don't really know. Okay, so we got to talk about, we're defining the market, price trends, market trends, days on market. How long are things staying on the market right now? Probably about 6 days in Hillsborough County, yeah. Tampa Bay, I think the number from March was 18 days. But remember, that's talking about all kinds of residential properties. And good condition, bad condition, a few foreclosures thrown, short sales thrown in there. They're going to take a little longer. Things that are overpriced, really overpriced, it does take them a while to get back down to where they need to be. But Hillsborough County, I think it's 6 days. I think that's exactly what it is. Interest rates. Interest rates have a huge impact, right? That's part of the market. Yes.
Lender told me
You got two more right there.
Each 1% lowers your buying power by about $80,000. Is that correct?
Well, can I say that the number will change depending on what you're qualified for. So if you're qualified, it's 10%. Each percent that the interest rate goes up lowers your purchasing power by about 10%. So if you're qualified to purchase, so here's where you run the issue with the buyer who was qualified for 400,000 last year and didn't buy anything, right? When the interest rates went up 1%, that lowered it by 40,000. So now they were down to 360. We've really gone down over 2 points now. So now they're down 80,000, right? So now they're only qualified for 320. Now, what can you buy for 320 this year that you couldn't buy for 400 last year? What are you doing? It doesn't make sense. And sometimes we're still running around with those buyers trying to help them find something instead of helping them to realize that this may not be their market. Sometimes it's not. That's the thing too. But yes, you're absolutely right. It makes a huge difference. Other influences. So what other things may influence the market that we need? And this may be specific like to a particular market, our market right now. Anything else that these are just sort of general things, but what else might influence the market? Oh, stuff that happens in the world. That could have an impact, right? Yeah, if we go to war, guess what's going to happen? Everything is going to get jacked up, right? Yeah, everything's going to be affected by it. Stock market, right? Why does the stock market have an effect on the housing market? Yeah, couple of things. Yeah, that's where a lot of their investments are, right? Could be their retirement fund. They get wiggy, they get nervous when the stock market drops, right?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. Did you get wiggy yesterday?
Oh, I'm crazed. I'm so upset with my husband.
What else may impact your market? Employment. Great. So what does that mean? Yeah. Right.
The person not qualified my house, once everything was said and done, they would lose their job. So there's complications.
Right. And that can be the individual buyer, the customer, the consumer that loses their job or changes jobs or something, but it's also the market, right? What happened when Amazon moved to Ruskin?
Kaboom, we have lots of houses
Right.
built and they're all filled.
All of our growth is not due to Amazon, but it had an effect, right? Whenever you have a large employer come to an area or close a facility and leave an area, have you heard base foreclosures? And for the military, a lot of the military bases were closed. Those towns were greatly affected when those bases closed, right? Because the military personnel left. They didn't need the housing anymore. So what happens to the housing market? What happens to the businesses in the area? Right. So whenever businesses come and go, whenever employment opportunities change, that's going to affect your local market, your labor force, right? What happens when you don't have enough people to build the houses, enough skilled labor, right? That affects the building. What about supply chain issues? That affects your construction as well, right? How long is it taking to get a appliance right now? It depends on what it is, but some of them are taking months, 5-6 months to get a refrigerator. So the builders aren't throwing out the spec homes like they used to, right? They're starting to pick up speed now, but that has reduced that inventory. So it's not really being able to help. Migration patterns. People moving from New York to Florida. Used to be we had about 300 people a day moving to Florida. Now we have about 1,000 people a day moving to Florida. A day. There's a lot of people dying here too. Don't worry. But you got.
Oh my God.
Did I say that? Yeah. Hey.
Every time I hear an ambulance in Sun City Center, I'm like,
Right.
Another listing.
Well, what is it Charlie always says? What is it Charlie Collins always says? People are dying to get out of here. Okay, I know it's morbid, and it's true, right? People live, people die, people move, but we have more people coming into Florida than are leaving Florida. And we have a housing shortage, and because of supply chain and labor issues, we can't build fast enough, right? So it's like this perfect storm of, yeah, it's a bottleneck, right? It is. And then new construction can help, right? In some cases, new construction increases the inventory. For us right now, and all over the US, really, the new starts for construction are down. And so they're not really helping us to alleviate the problem. Now, all these people that are leaving New York and coming to Florida, what's going to happen to certain areas in New York? They're going to have some problems, right? Because they may end up having an overage of inventory, and people have left jobs up there, and so businesses may close. There's, they may have an opposite effect. It's not real extreme right now, but anybody remember like Pennsylvania in the 80s, right? When the steel mills closed and things like that. It has a big impact on the housing market. And what? People working from home, right? That changes things, doesn't it? But, right. They don't have to. I think that's going to be interesting to see what businesses do, because right now they've let a lot of people stay at home, but now they're starting to call people back, and people are saying, I don't want to go back. And people are making choices to retire early, to become self-employed, to take employment with companies that will allow them to work from home. And some people are going, I can't stay home anymore. I got to go back to work, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few years with all of that. Okay, so that's defining the market. Now, we're not going to go into every issue here. We've touched on them. What I recommend, because this is not the class, the point is to know your market. If you don't know what that means, just look at this list and go find out something about it. Find out what's happening now, right? I'm going to give you a couple of examples just to help you along with this, and some of it we kind of touched on already. So one of them is the percent of cash sales in Hillsborough County. And this may surprise some of you, because do we think that's a problem right now? There's so many cash sales, so many cash buyers. I should have actually not shown this yet.
They're not investors, they're good.
Well, either or, right? So I probably shouldn't have shown this yet. I should have asked the question first, especially from people who have been in the market for a while. How many buyers are cash buyers? Well, in Hillsborough County, so far year to date, and this is really going to be through March, so it's just a short year, there have been 30% of the single family homes sold have been cash sales. Now, does it feel like more than that? It feels like more than that, right? It feels like every home has cash offers, and they might, but they're not all accepting the cash offers, right? What was it last year? About 27%. About 27%. How about the year before that? Oh, all the way down to 15, 18. Those seem really low, right? Like that seems like what it should be. And now it's like 30%. But then go back a few years. Guess what? All the way back to 2013, 42% of the sales were cash. Now those were really investors back then, right? That's when all of the big hedge fund investors came into play and were buying up a lot of properties. And then, when you see American Homes for Rent and Progress Homes and all those, they had buyers that came in and bought up all those homes and then converted them to rentals. So it wasn't individuals necessarily buying with cash. It was a lot of other buyers. But even the few years after that, you're still 34%, 28%, 23%. So we're really not so far out of line right now. It's not as cash heavy as we think. Your financed buyers can still get a home. It's challenging. You got to think outside the box, but they can do it, right? So that should give you hope. Now, if it keeps going up from there, then we're maybe in trouble, but that's where we're at right now. Courtney, did you want to say something? No? Okay. I thought you raised your hand. Okay, now what about this one? The effects of rising interest rates. We spoke about this a minute ago, about what effect it has on your purchasing power, that it reduces it. But what's the reality? Does a lender actually qualify a person for a dollar amount of a purchase price? Or do they qualify them on what they can afford each month for housing. Right? So sometimes we get stuck on the purchase price, but what if they move into a neighborhood that's got a $5,000 a year CDD? Uh-oh, maybe they can't afford that same price anymore because that's got to be factored into their monthly expense, right? If the taxes are higher, if the insurance is higher, if the HOA fees are higher, that's going to affect that actual number. So let's look at the rates and look at just the principal payment. This is ignoring taxes, ignoring escrow for taxes and for insurance. So it's just the P and the PITI. There's no interest built into this. So I'm sorry, I said that wrong. This actually is their payment. It's their principal and interest payment, not the taxes and insurance. So I'll correct that before I send that out to anybody. So if the rate was 3.25, which it was last year, it was actually dropped below 3 a little bit last year, right? So a payment on a $400,000 house with a 10% down payment, that's a $360,000 loan. And so their payment would be about $1,566. Okay, no, excluding taxes and insurance. Raise it up a point to 4.25, their payment goes up to $1,770. 5.25, 1987, and 6.25, 2216. Now last year dropped just below 3. This year we're up at 5.29 today or something like that, I think is the average. So what's the difference there? 15 to 19, over $400 difference per month. Guess what? That's why they can't qualify for the same purchase price. Okay. So it's really important in this environment. It's always important for the customer to be speaking with their lender continually, but it's super important right now because the way the interest rates are going up, it is going to affect what they can purchase. So make sure you're looking at those things. Okay, what about this one? Identifying the customer. So this is where we talk about the market. Let's talk about your customer that you're working with. Is it a buyer or is it a seller? Is it both? Right? Because you got two different issues there. What's their timeline? In other words, are they ready to purchase? Oh yeah, we don't really care when we sell. Or we need to sell next week because we've got to get out of here because I got this job and I got to be there in 30 days. So we got to find a buyer quick. Or are they motivated? Are they willing to actually buy or sell a house? How many of you have worked with a buyer that was qualified and they just never would do it? They just never would pull the trigger. So they're not really motivated. They may say they are, but you got to dig in a little bit more. Are they qualified? You know, if they do have to get financing, are they able to obtain that financing? Are they able to compete in today's market? If they're a seller, are they able to sell their home? Now, almost every seller has equity in their home now and probably can sell it because our market's appreciating, but that's not always the situation, right? And even if it has, I'm starting to see cash out refis, right? Actually, a lot of people aren't even refining right now because the rates just jumped up so much, but you were seeing some cash out refis where, you know, they were taking out all the cash from their house. And we haven't really seen that, all the equity that they had, we haven't really seen that since before the market dropped in a big way. And so, yeah, that's not great. You know, it's healthier to have equity in your home, not to be leveraged at 100%.
I had a neighbor flag me down because they were saying they were going to try and get the equity out of their home, but they didn't appraise for what he thought it was. He goes, well,
Okay.
the house next door is selling for so much more. How come that's happening and I can only get this much for my house?
That's completely different. Yeah. It's not the same thing at all, though. Yeah, well, and they have questions, right? They have questions. Yep, absolutely. And that's something else we're going to talk about in a minute. That's perfect. Yeah, experience. Is this an experienced buyer or seller? It's our job to educate them, and sometimes we just gloss over things. And we forget that they may not know about the home buying process, the home selling process, about financing, about title, about inspections, about appraisals. They may not know those things. And even if they knew them once, they may not know them now. If you bought a house 20 years ago and now you're getting ready to sell it, do you even remember what happened in the process?
Even if you did, it's totally.
It's not the same, is it? It's not the same. Is it different to get a mortgage now than it was in 2004? Yes, yes, it is. It was so easy. What do you mean you don't want any documents? Okay, I'll take the money, right? I mean, it's just crazy. And I don't have to pay I don't have to pay any principal. I just pay the interest. Sounds great. Oh, what do you mean there's a balloon payment? I got to pay what?
And so.
Yeah, but then we couldn't because everybody was in the same boat and the market collapsed. We couldn't sell. Crazy stuff going on. Okay, and can you work with that customer? This one, I know when you're new, you like try to work with everybody and go everywhere. And sometimes you hate yourself or you hate them. Why am I still working with this person? And guess what? Somebody else might work with them just great. Yeah, there are options. You get to like your customers. You got into real estate so that you could make choices.
There's somebody getting along really great with one of my exes right now, so.
That's ex-customer or ex-husband?
I'm just saying, we didn't get along, but somebody else does, so that's.
That's right. Absolutely. Somebody else will be fine. Right? Some of us have a higher or lower tolerance for certain attributes and characteristics. Can you work with that person? Will you go where they need you to go? Will you handhold them the way they need to be held? And some of us,
To the end, but I will never send another card.
but you got,
Oh my.
that's off your list,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so you got them closed and
But I'll
that's it.
serve them till the end. I
You'll
mean,
serve them till
some of
the
them
end.
are Very impossible.
Yeah.
And, but I'm committed, so I'll finish it.
Yeah.
But, they won't hear from me.
Yeah. Sometimes it may not be in our best interest and sometimes it may not be in their best interest. How many of you would go to Sarasota to sell a house? Many of you would.
I have, actually. and
Okay.
sold one.
Great. How many of you feel like you have a good working knowledge of the market in Sarasota? What's that?
You know what saved me is the listing agent was wonderful.
Okay, that's great if the listing agent's wonderful. That's helpful.
Oh, yeah.
What about actually going there in the first place? How do you know what areas to show them? How do you know what's going to fit their needs? How do you know? Can you muddle your way through it? Most of us can muddle our way through it, right? We could figure it out. And is it in the customer's best interest? Do you know you're showing them the best properties in the area that fit their needs, and the criteria that they have? You don't have any idea. You're just making a sale, right? So I'm not saying don't do it. My first house was that I sold was in Haines City. Anybody even know where Haines City is? It's by Davenport. It's on the way to, it's almost to Kissimmee, right? It used to be an Orange Grove. That's right. And now it's a lot of transitional housing for, Disney, Airbnb, short-term kind of stuff. But I had a friend who really wanted me. He started in Hillsborough, Plant City, Lakeland, Davenport, Haines City. So we just kept going further and further. By the way, your lockbox keys don't work, your super keys don't work in all those places. You have to call and get them activated there. So if you're gonna go out, then get that done.
Isn't that kind of the point, though, if you're going to take like a listing out that far, that you need to do like 3 times as much work?
Absolutely.
You
You need to research because the Realtor Code of Ethics says that we will not practice in areas in which we do not have expertise. So get some expertise, right? It's not that hard. You just have to go find it, right? Now I'm going to give you some resources too to help you do that. So go find it. So here's something interesting about Let me tell you about Sarasota and Hillsborough County, just so you can kind of see the difference. I pulled this up. In Tampa Bay, in March, the average sale price was a little over $425,000. Average days on market, 18 days, selling at 101% of the list price with 0.63 months of inventory. In Sarasota, the average sale price, $643,000. 18 days on the market, 101% of list to sale price, and 0.83 months on the market. So they're very similar, except they're about a little over $200,000 higher than we are. It's a whole different price point, right? But you need to know that when you're talking to buyers and sellers, because if you're thinking, oh, the average sale price is 400 or 425, and you get down there and you find out it's 625 or 643 or whatever this is, then it's a whole different market, right? You got to take a different buyer goes there. They can't be shopping up here and not find anything and say, well, I think I'll look in Sarasota. That's going the wrong direction. You need to go further north, not further south. Further south gets more expensive generally, especially when you're talking about cities, right? Miami being the most expensive, right? Naples is expensive. So it's kind of getting less and less as it gets up to Tampa Bay. Yeah. If you want to get cheap, go up to Gainesville. I don't know, somewhere. I know, it's all expensive. But there are still some places that are better than others. But everywhere is kind of crazy right now because it's a frenzy, right? Like everybody's like freaking out that, and when that happens, it's like an auction, right? There's the FOMO, there's the fear of missing out. So everybody's just a little into stuff that they wouldn't normally be into. Yes.
Ocala used to be reasonable
Yes.
for the purchase of property and homes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not so anymore.
Correct. Yeah. For sure. Not. Okay, so what are we going to do about all this? Let's go back. Well, no, let's do this one first. I think it'll be okay. I got a couple I'm going to go back to. So how are we going to deal with all this? So now we know a little bit about our market. So we have some expertise. So we understand what we're dealing with. We understand our customer. We know their needs. We're going to do a proper buyer consultation, a proper listing consultation. We're going to make sure they're ready, willing, and able, right? We're going to gauge their experience. We're going to figure out if we can work with them. Okay, now we're working together and we want to provide a great customer service experience, right? A great customer experience. And I'm going to go over this because I think it is a thread that runs through everything we do. And it's going to solve almost all your problems, right? It's going to solve almost all your problems. So what are we going to do first? Well, we got to lead generate. That's the first thing. We got to find some people to work with. And hopefully, as we're lead generating, we're not just thinking about dollars and numbers. I understand that that's what you can do. I got to make 100 calls a day. I got to do this. That's fine. But every person you actually get to pick up the phone or every conversation you had better be about them. It needs to be customer focused. It needs to be personalized. It needs to be customized to what their needs are. Now, the next one on here is going to be employ great systems, which means you need to have some kind of standardization. We need to have some kind of standardization of what we do when we're working with people. We need to have some systems in place and some processes, and that gives us, a lot of stability in the way we do things. We don't have to think about things all the time. We just go through it. We also need to take that system and we need to customize it to each person. So everybody should have a listing system. You should know when you walk out the door to go for a listing that you've done the research you need to do. You've done your comparative market analysis. You've done the neighborhood research. You've interviewed the seller for some basic information. And then you should know when you go to the appointment, you should know what you're going to say for your part of the presentation. You should have a list of questions that you're going to ask the seller so you find out more about them. You should have some things you take with you, whether it's a physical listing presentation, a tape measure, whatever camera to take some preliminary photos, any information you give them for, preparing the home for sale. You should have all that ready to go so that if you could go to a listing appointment pretty darn quick, right? When you go out the door, you don't have to get there and go, oh no, what did I do with where's my lockbox? What did I do with my tape measure? What did I do? You shouldn't be doing that, right? We're professionals. You just told me you're going to make $10,000. Act like it, right? That's a lot of money, and they're gonna pay that. You're gonna have to provide them with an excellent customer experience, and when you do that, then you just take those systems and then customize and personalize, right? Every seller's situation is different, so you're gonna personalize for them. Every buyer's situation is different. Do a thorough consultation every time. Every time. Buyers, super important. You do a thorough buyer consultation with them and needs analysis and get a buyer agreement signed, right? That will eliminate 50% of your problems right off the bat. Same thing with the seller. Do a proper consultation with your seller. Now, some of you think, oh yeah, it's all about my presentation. I go in there, and that's great. You've got to memorize your presentation, so you have to internalize it so then you can speak it with some authenticity, right? And without sounding too scripted and all, but you have to have the information before you can do that. So you have to internalize it first, and then you can present it. But really, it's about them. You're going to ask great questions, get to know your customer, ask them a lot of questions, and then listen to the answers. Don't just read a list of questions. Hear what they say, and that's going to drive the next question that you ask, right? Great. So you're thinking about selling your home. Why are you selling? Role play with me. Why are you selling? Oh, you're moving. Great. Where are you moving? Back to Puerto Rico. How fabulous. What's taking you there? Family.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess, okay, good, good. Well, what are you going to do when you get there? You're going to buy a new home, or?
Just stay with my parents.
Oh, you're going to stay with your parents for a while? Okay, great. Do you have a job there or something you're going to do?
I'm going to go to a few interviews that I already have scheduled.
Oh, great. You've already got your interview scheduled. Good, good. So do you think you'll eventually be buying a home then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually, yeah, I see that happening.
Good, good. Well, when that happens, yeah, well, let's stay in touch, because I know some agents over in Puerto Rico. I'd be glad to recommend them to you. So super. Great. So what's your timeline for all of this? When do you think you're going to be moving? What
It's
is the
happening
idea?
in the next 3 months.
In the next 3 months, okay. So if you were to put the home on the market now, it's moving pretty quickly. If you were to get an offer right away and they wanted to close in 30 days, would you be prepared to do that?
I will say 60 days.
60 days, okay,
Yeah.
great, okay, good. Well, we have a couple of options, and we could wait a couple of weeks to put it on the market, or we could ask for, when you get offers coming in, we could just let them know you want an extended closing date. Because buyers are pretty flexible about right now, you can probably drive that pretty well. So if you want 60 days, I'm sure we'll be able to get that for you. Great. So tell me a little bit more about your home. Is there anything that you've done to it since you purchased it? Any renovations or upgrades that you've done?
Well, me and my husband started to do the pool, but it's not done. So just kind of like the beginning of the.
So there's a hole in the ground?
Yeah.
Okay,
But
yeah.
it's not done.
Okay.
It's not done.
Is it, do you plan on completing the work before the sale?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't want to continue.
You don't want to do it? You want to have it
No.
just like it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that there's a lot of buyers out there. There's probably someone who will buy there and complete that pool for you. And I understand a lot of people have trouble with their pool contractors right now. I will tell you that that's probably going to eliminate anybody who's financing. So we're looking for a cash buyer,
Okay.
because then they can finish it up whenever they want to. Right?
Okay.
Okay, but you see how these conversations go? Like ask more questions and then listen to what they say, and then dig in some more and go follow the trails. Go 3 deep. I'd buy that house. There's actually one. Did that one sell in Sefner? The one that was partially built, had just some of the block up. It's been on the market for a while. It was down to like 60-some thousand. I was thinking, dang, I'm gonna go buy that. I don't know anything about. Well, no, it's not yours. Huh? No, but it's Sefner, Courtney.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
No, you should sell it to.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, funny. So, okay, but get the point, just, keep digging in, right? Okay, keep digging in. So do a thorough consultation. Know your customer. Ask great questions. Because you could be all ready to go on something and they're not doing anything for 6 months. And just take your time, go through the process. Educate and set expectations. So you're thinking about listing your home. Do you have an idea about what you want to list it for? How much you expect to sell it for?
Well, I have been seeing, what's happening in my neighborhood, and I think I want to go with 450.
450. Great, great.
Because it's half full.
Because I have a half pool. So 450. Yeah. So if the pool was finished, how much do you think you would sell it for?
It might be a sinkhole for somebody else.
That's right. You never know. Hey, we're buying sinkhole homes now. Remember when those were hard to sell? We can sell those now. Not a problem. Yeah. Okay. So, you're asking questions. They already have an idea in mind. There's a small percentage that really is waiting for you to tell them. The vast majority of sellers have an idea of what they want. And if they're on target, hooray. If they actually think that it's lower than what it is, even better, you're a hero. But if they think it's higher and they think it's significantly higher, then you've got more work to do, right? This is where you get to educate them and set expectations. So you need to make sure that you understand what's happening in the market. If we price this right, this is at a price point where there's a lot of buyers out there. You are probably going to get a lot of showings right away. Some of you that have listings, think of a property you have that got a lot of showings. How many showings did you get in a day? 10 showings.
We got 20 over a day and a half.
20 over a day and a half. Yeah. And I've heard of more. I've seen more. Yeah. But that's a lot. You just tell them, hey, listen, we're going to put it on the market on Saturday. Pack up and go away for the weekend because it's going to be crazy. Now, is every house like that? No, no. Does every house get multiple offers the first day? No. So this is where we start setting expectations, right? Like, yes, the market's moving quickly. Yes, homes that are priced correctly, competitively, are getting a lot of traffic and a lot of offers right away. But we're going to know quickly if you're not priced right, if we're not in the market. Because if we go 2 weeks and you don't have an offer, there's something going on probably, unless it's an extremely high price point or an extremely unique property that's only looking for a certain buyer. And that can take longer, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong, right? Then you don't know what the price is anyway, do you? You're just kind of a shot in the dark, right? You're just kind of trying to figure out the best you can. Okay, so we've got setting expectations. Buyers, go set expectations with buyers. You have to be ready to go. If we're going to go look at homes, you have if you're getting financed, you have got to have a pre-approval letter. Better yet, do you guys at cross country can you fully approve before they look?
We can, yeah.
Okay, so it's a possibility. They don't always like to do it. It's not for every buyer. I'm assuming I'm speaking for you, but tell me if I'm wrong. This is just generally when lenders will fully approve buyers just based on them finding they have to find a property and they'll have to maybe do an appraisal on it. There's sometimes they're not doing appraisals now, right? Especially if they're putting a lot down. There are some situations where they don't have to go in and do a full appraisal. They get a waiver or they do a drive-by or whatever, right? There's some situations, but for most buyers, they're going to get pre-approved and then they're going to go find a house and then they're going to make an offer, get it accepted, and then they're going to go through the full approval process, right? And you guys stop me if I'm wrong with what your company is doing, right? This is just what I see from the majority, right? What I see happening most of the time. So one thing that can be helpful though is if you have a buyer who needs to be more competitive is have them fully approved up front, right? Are you guys doing any kind of bridge loans or anything right now? Okay, so you want to just tell them what a bridge loan is, so I don't have to. I'm speaking for lenders when you guys are the lenders.
If you're leaving your, you have a primary and you want to take some cash out to help for the down payment on the next house, so we can give you money on the departing residence to help you buy from the new home.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems that sellers have is they have to sell their current home in order to buy a new one. That's not true of all sellers. If they own their house outright, they probably can go buy another one, either outright with cash or they can get financed. But a lot of people can't carry 2 mortgages at the same time. And only the lender knows that, because the seller will say, oh yeah, it's okay. I make plenty of money. It's not about making plenty of money. That's only one piece of the puzzle. Go talk to the lender, find out if you are qualified to carry both mortgages for that amount at the same time. You may or may, some people are, but most are not, right? Most are not. So if you have to sell, or maybe they're qualified for 2 mortgages, they don't have any cash. So they don't have enough, they need the money out of house number 1 to purchase house number 2. So you got to think the horse and the cart, which comes first, the horse and the cart. If you need to sell house number 1 in order to purchase house number 2, which one needs to be under contract first? House number 1 needs to be under contract before house number 2 gets under contract. Now, what they're offering is an opportunity with a bridge loan that maybe some customers might not have that problem. Because what happens when you have a house that you need to sell and you're trying to buy another one? You want to go write an offer with a contingency in it that's contingent on the sale of house number one in order to purchase house number two, right? And they don't want to do that. Sellers are like, I'm not doing, now they will sometimes. They, in this market, it's much more challenging.
Yeah, we also
Yeah,
have
Harvey.
a cash bus program. Ribbon.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ribbon. Yeah. Have you guys heard of Ribbon? Okay. Has anybody used it yet?
Yes.
Have you used it, Tony? Yeah.
It actually went really well. So essentially, Ribbon guaranteed the price of the house that she was buying. The appraisal came in low,
Mhm.
and Ribbon actually paid them $17,000. So Ribbon only made $5,500. Ribbon had to pay out $17,000. So it was
Wow.
great for the client.
For the client. Okay. Good. Good.
But we're gonna buy the house if it doesn't close.
Right.
So they'll buy it if it doesn't close. So it's kind of a guarantee. It's a guarantee program on the sale of house number one, so that you don't have to have a contingency for house number two. Is that correct? Okay, good. So for those of you online, if you, oh, somebody's got a question in chat. Let's see where we're at. Sorry, I know this is off topic, but can you speak on bridge loans versus HELOC?
Okay, so you can't do a HELOC if the house is for sale.
Cannot do, can you, I don't know if you can hear that, Zoe, but he said you cannot do a HELOC if the house is for sale.
Can't do a bridge loan.
So you want to do the HELOC first and then put the
Yeah,
house
you
on the
can
market.
do- Yeah, I've told people, I have told people. yeah,
La, 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 la.
Can't do a HELOC. And I
Is there
can do
another one?
HELOCs as well. So, yeah, so you can do the HELOC and then, hey, then make it a rental if you want to do that too.
Thank you, Denicia. Okay, yeah, so you can make it a rental. Yeah, great. There's a lot of options out there, right? You just got to figure out what they are. Okay, so we have educate, set expectations about the market, about the home buying or selling process, and about what's next. Tell them what they have to do. Tell them what to expect, what's coming up. That's the biggest complaint that consumers have about their real estate agents, is they didn't know what was going on. So anticipate and handle objections and issues. This has a lot to do with coming to script practice if you're not doing that, especially if you're newer and you haven't had the experience. Sometimes you don't even know what to anticipate, right? Like Kathy Griggs, if you go to a listing appointment, what do you know? What can you almost assume objections are you can anticipate when going on a listing appointment? Number one is commission. Okay, if you don't have any answers to that, go find some answers. Go learn some scripts, work on your value proposition so that you can support that, and know the market to know the reality of what's actually happening with commissions. Because you can stand on that, all day long and not get a listing, or you may go with the market, but you might not, because if you can prove your value and support your commission, then you should do that, right? That's your livelihood. That's what's going to pay your bills and feed your babies and all that, stuff.
That's how low the commission rates are right now for buyer agents.
For buyer agents? Yeah, what are you seeing mostly?
2%.
And then you wait for closing.
-4.95.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pretty sure with the market being so high. that
So
you're-
this area is a little lower. If you go up to New Tampa, North Tampa, you're still seeing at least 2.5% most of the time. Yeah. Down in Sarasota, they'll fuss at you like crazy because they're still getting 3. It's different.
Contract on Ocala, and when I was searching in Ocala, I used, everything is 3%, 3%, 3%,
Yeah.
3% for the buyer.
Yeah.
Versus here, that I'm seeing the 2.5
Yeah.
minus.
Real estate is hyper local, and that includes all aspects, including commissions, right? Commissions may be, one thing here and something else, but they're always negotiable, right? And if you can support your value, you can go in and say, tell the customer, this is what my commission is. And you may have certain circumstances where you'll negotiate it. That's your choice, right? We don't, as a brokerage, set a commission. So you get to do that. And don't cut yourself short, because don't forget that when you do it, You got to give the company a cut. You got to pay your expenses. You've got to pay your taxes. So, you know, you're going to eat it up pretty quick if you're not kind of judicious with it, right? With taking care of that. Okay, anticipate and handle objections. Communicate early and often. Early and often, right? So sometimes we get somebody, we can't find a house for somebody. We've gone out looking, we can't really find anything. And then we just kind of stop talking to them because there's nothing out there. If you want them to remain your customer and to buy with you when they're able, you have to talk to them. If you stop talking to them, you've lost them. If you have a seller, especially in a buyer's market where nothing's happening, and you're not in touch with them, you're going to lose them. So keep in touch, stay in touch on a regular basis. Weekly is great. Even if you have nothing going on, hey, just want to check in, let you know, nothing's happening this week, all good to go. Just waiting on closing, you know. Sometimes you got several weeks in there. Maybe you're under contract, but you got several weeks where nothing happens, especially a long one. I've got one right now that went under contract and it had over a 60-day close. So it was all of April, all of May, and into June. And it's easy not to talk to them because everything's done. And you're just waiting. You still need to touch base, right? That's how you get those clients for life. When you go that extra mile, when you stay in touch. Stay in touch with your customers and with the other agents and the vendors. Be proactive, not reactive. Try to, again, think about what could happen or what does come next and deal with it ahead instead of behind. Even if you handle things well, but you're always handling them reactively, the customer will react to that. And they'll say, well, I had to go find my own house. Have anybody had that? Well, I found the house, and why should you get the commission? Well, don't let them find the house. You better be out there finding it, right? That's your job. Go find the house. I understand. Sometimes they do stuff like go find a house in Venice when you didn't know they were looking there. That just happened. That happened to my husband. That happened to my husband. And then she's like, well, I want half the commission.
Or you send them home.
Because I found it. Okay, what about all those other houses we looked at before that? What about all the ones that actually met the criteria that weren't in Venice, that, you know, where you weren't going to go?
You send them homes from MLS and they send you homes from Zillow that they want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. That's right. So keep that in mind for just a minute, because we're gonna touch on that. So anticipate and handle objections or issues, communicate often, be proactive, not reactive, be creative. So I was gonna go back to what Marisha said a minute ago. You were talking about that transaction that almost blew up because they were retiring and nobody knew. They thought they were still gonna be on active duty, right? Somebody had to get creative. Somebody had to think. Because what happens is sometimes a problem comes up and everybody goes, oh, the deal's over. No, it is not. What's my answer to that, Buck Bishop?
Never over.
It is never over until it's over. Until we beat it with a stick. It is not over. We are going to save that deal. Most deals can be saved. I would guess that at least 80% of them can be saved. Now, sometimes there's a thing that happens that's just not solvable. But many times, we can solve the problems. And if you can think, I'm not really sure how we teach people to think.
Outside the box.
And outside the box. You want to go inside the box with your customers and your boundaries, but you'll need to go outside the box when it's time to think. You've got to get creative. You have to ask other people. Sometimes we don't know what to do or how to get out of something, but we can call our lender or call our title agent or call another agent, call somebody on the ALC and say, hey, I've got this situation. What do I do with it? How can I salvage this? Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes I find it's best not to react at all to
Oh,
the problem.
good.
But just stop and wait, because gears
Good.
are turning in other places.
Good. Do you know how long it took me to learn that?
Not react.
Does anybody know me in here? Do I like to fix things? I like to know things. I like to fix things. It's true, isn't it? I do. And it was so hard for me to learn in the beginning that sometimes you need to be quiet and not react. Give it an hour.
The problem is everybody in here aren't the agents that need to learn how to think.
That's the agents on the other side of the transaction.
Have not come in here to take your class.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, yeah. But so sometimes you have to wait, right? And that is a skill in and of itself, is to relax for a minute and say, okay, let's just breathe. Don't, that's the back to not being, not, don't be too reactive, right? Just wait a minute and see what happens. Now, if you're at the closing table and some major thing's blowing up, that's not really the time to sit back and wait. You know, you got to deal with it then. But there's a lot of things along the way that will take care of themselves. Right, Courtney?
And I'll just say too, that sometimes you're waiting because before you go call the buyer or go call the seller.
Yeah.
And while you're waiting, the answer that you needed to hear
Yes.
comes through.
That's right.
And they never found out the chaos that was going on.
That's right.
behind the scenes.
And that's when you're a great agent and they don't always know it because it's handled behind the scenes and they don't know that it was ever a problem. Because our job is not to get them all escalated and fired up. Our job is to keep everybody calm. Manage emotions. That's awesome. Okay. Be proactive, not reactive. Be creative. Think, go beyond, plus it up. Okay, go beyond, plus it up. What does that mean? Like, do more than expected, right? Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Underpromise and overdeliver. And that plussing it up, that going beyond might just be making sure you stay in contact with that customer once a week. Compared to most agents, that's going above and beyond, right? It might be bringing somebody some moving boxes when you see somebody else is getting rid of some. It might be showing up for the photo session to make sure that everything's in place and helping the customer to, get the paper towels off the countertop and all. For some people, that's just what they do, but that's plussing it up because you look at the pictures, not everybody does that, right?
And put the toilet seat down.
And put the toilet seat down, for goodness sakes. Absolutely, right? It might be when they say, do you know a great mortgage lender? It might be giving them a recommendation for a great mortgage lender. When they say, hey, we're not sure, this is scary to us because we don't know about this, electrical issue. They're talking about there's no GFCI. What's a GFCI? And you're like, it's a $10 outlet, but giving them contractors to call and home inspectors, right? Helping be the resource for them. You don't have to do everything. Sometimes it's just the info. It might be making a phone call for them, right? Like, oh, I'm so busy. I don't know what to do about all this. Would you like me to make the appointment with the home inspector? I'd be happy to do that for you. Oh, would you? That'd be great. It'd be a lot off my plate. And it might be something really little. It could be something big. Like we do things, right? I went a couple weeks ago to help a lady in St. Pete unpack her boxes because she was sick after her move. And she just had boxes piled up everywhere in the little condo that was much smaller than the house she sold. So we just went over and hung out for a couple hours and unpacked some boxes and folded them up so they could be carried out easily. Customer for life. You did what? As lenders too? Oh, good. So if you don't want to do those things, you just find the right lender. And they is that what you said?
I did that last year.
Yeah.
Actually, she is somebody in my neighborhood, and she was selling and buying her house in the same neighborhood.
Yep.
And at 10 o'clock at night, they sold their house, they're moving into their new house.
Yeah.
And they were needing help. So she sent message out, and she sent me a message. I was like, okay.
So you showed up.
I was her lender.
You are a lender showed up. Yeah. That's great. And I'm not saying we all have to go do those things, right? And you don't have to do them for every customer, but sometimes you do something, right? Now, what about marketing? Let's just say that you do really great folder brochures that are super professional looking, like Kathy Griggs does. And, you get, that's plussing it up. You spend a few dollars extra on the listing. You don't just print a flyer out. You have these beautiful brochures How much do they cost you? Do you mind telling us? Or do you know? Should I ask Lindsay? They're not very much. Yeah, so you made $10,000 and you spent 75 extra, and you've got a beautiful marketing piece that makes you stand out, right? It's above and beyond. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Yep. And isn't that what most of us do? The tacky thing, right? We do the tacky thing instead of spending the $75 to do the super professional thing. Yeah. In this market, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. By the time you order them and get them back, the property's sold, right? And yes, that's correct. And it can be anything, right? Maybe you run Facebook ads, spend $10, they're cheap, I don't know what it is, but you plus it up somehow, right? Whether it's your marketing or your service, whatever it is, you do something that's just a little extra. And you're doing it so that they remember you after the sale. They have a good experience during the sale. They remember you after the sale. They give you referrals throughout the sale. And now I'm going to loop back because you're probably wondering why I'm doing all the customer service thing. And I know we're getting short on time here, but I'm going to go back to the first two slides we did. And I want you to think about this list right here and see if we can't solve most of these problems with good customer service or good customer experience. So if a buyer's unrealistic about the market, what can we do to fix that? In the beginning, so start from scratch. You got a new buyer, you want to prevent this, let's say that. Do a great buyer consultation. Educate them about the market. They're not fully qualified. Yeah, right. Get it, what is it? Is it, they don't have enough income, they don't have enough assets, they don't have good credit, they haven't been pre-approved by a lender, right? You get them to a lender so they can figure that out. Or if they're cash, they may not have access to their funds, they may not be liquid. So whatever it is, you're getting them to where they're ready to go. Maybe they're in the middle of a divorce, right? There's all kinds of things that could make people not, I don't mean just pre-qualified or pre-approved for a mortgage. I mean qualified to purchase. What about what if they have no sense of urgency? What from that customer experience list can help with that? Yeah, setting expectations, right? Setting expectations about the market and how quickly it moves. If you find something you like, you have to make an offer, right? I'm going to go back, touch on what you said a minute when we first started, Deborah. It is not illegal, immoral, or unethical to write multiple offers on multiple properties. It's not always best because you could end up being under contract on more than one property. And if you're writing it on an as-is contract and you have an inspection period built in there, you can terminate the one you don't want. So you can do it and you don't get any trouble for it. Now, does that mean you won't hurt some feelings or get some people miffed? Probably, but in this market, it is happening. So just be aware of it, right? Be aware that it's happening. So sometimes sellers will sign an offer and all of a sudden it gets canceled. They're like, what do you mean? I went through all that evaluating 27 offers and I chose this one and now they cancel? Yep, they sure did. They sure did. Okay, want to see homes that aren't qualified.
Kathy, I have a question.
Which is good.
Is it still okay to have if the buyer really wants the house and it's multiple offers?
Yep.
And they say, I want to write a letter to the seller to appeal, whatever. Is that still okay? Because I read something about.
Yeah, it's going back and forth. I've got mixed opinions about that. I don't mind, personally don't mind the letter. They were starting to say that, oh, you shouldn't do it. Now that kind of got struck down. So be careful about it. If they want to write it, keep anything that could be a fair housing issue out of the letter. Don't talk about children. Don't talk about, I'll be right next to my Spanish church, or I have, and be careful to talk, not to talk about white cabinets. We all know that's a violation, right?
Because they're white, oh my God.
If you enter a listing in MLS and you say it's got white cabinets, it'll flag it as a violation.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah, just like if you said Spanish tile or something like that, it'll flag it. It's not a violation. It's looking for keywords and it's flagging it.
Another one is.
Yeah, so just be careful that the letter talks about the house and the home, that they would love to live there and stuff like that.
Usually they talk about the family.
I know they do, and that's what gets people in trouble. It doesn't get the buyer in trouble. The seller's the one that gets in trouble for fair housing. But if they chose that based on something, now listen, selling to people with children is not a fair housing violation. Not selling to people with children is a fair housing violation. Okay, so that's the protected class. And it doesn't matter if they're married or not married. That's not a housing violation. If it's you can decline college students for rentals. That's not a fair housing violation, right? They're not a protected. It's got to be a protected class. So avoid anything with protected classes in a letter. No, most of the time people are doing it because they're trying to show how much they'd love to be there. But if the seller selects their offer and somebody else says, oh, because sometimes they'll even put a picture in the letter and they say, oh, well, that was a Spanish family and I'm Spanish, or that was, whatever. And so I felt like they should be here, or they were, but military is not protected class either. So you see a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to sell to them because they're military.
Kathy, last week I had 22 offers that I had to put onto a spreadsheet,
Mm-hmm.
present.
Okay.
And I did it, and I looked at it, and just based on sellers' names, it indicated a lot of information.
Possibility. Yeah. Possibly did.
So
What's your last name?
my last name.
Yes.
is Sarmiento,
And what does that indicate about you?
Mexicano, Americano.
Are you?
No.
Okay. So sometimes it does. My point is sometimes it does.
Mine is Sal.
Yes, and they should. Yeah. So I know what you're saying. So you could block it out and do buyer one by two, but here's the thing. You don't have to do that. Because when you get an offer for a seller, you can send that offer to that seller and they can see the names. So you don't have to, that's, if they get it and they see it and they do it, that's their thing. And if somebody can prove they did it, then that's on them. But you're not going to get in trouble for listing. If you do, I'd fight that, because you would send them the contract. They're going to see the names. And if you send them 22 contracts, they'd see 22 names.
I put it all on
Yeah.
a spreadsheet, 22 hours.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work, and it was
Yeah.
very, very stressful.
Yeah.
And I want you to know they didn't take the high bid.
Yeah.
In fact, he took a veteran who offered 300 and he countered at 290
I love it.
because it was
Yes.
a veteran.
Isn't that great? Okay. Yeah, everybody else in the room's going, ah, that's not great, because it wasn't my customer. No. Yeah. Okay, so the rest of these, we won't go through every one of them, but can you see that most of these things are addressed if you do the upfront customer service or customer experience things, right? You do the consultations, you set the expectations, you educate the customer, right? Now, let's just take a few minutes at the end and talk about some very specific situations, because that's what you really want, right? If you have a buyer who's out searching for homes, you just have to make sure that they are really qualified, that they are really ready, willing, able, and educated about the market and the process. If they do not have, well, first of all, are they even qualified to purchase anything in this market? They might be qualified, but if the average sale price is $400,000 and they're qualified for 2, you can't even get a townhouse now for $200,000.
And it's okay to say, I think you should wait.
It's,
to the market,
and that's right. It's
because
okay to
I have
say
too many
you
that-
may need, you are not in this market. to get in this market, here's what you need, right? That doesn't mean you're not caring for them. It doesn't mean you're not providing great service. It means you're helping them get where they need to be so that they can purchase. You know, there was a day when you had to have 20% down payment to buy a house. So it's not like you're wronging somebody. What happens if you put somebody, I see it, I still see it happening now. You get somebody in a house, they barely qualify, and then the air conditioner goes, or the roof needs to be replaced in 2 years. Right, they have nothing to do, or the car breaks down, right? Like there's no cash. And the lenders make sure they have a certain amount there. They've got to have a little bit, but it's not really enough for anything big to happen, right? So not everybody is really ready. Even if they're qualified, he can buy, they may not really be ready. It might not be their market, right? It might not be their market. Now renting stinks right now too. I know that. It's horrible. The rents have gone crazy. It's all horrible. It's all horrible. So let's say we have a buyer who is qualified. What else do they need? In this market, can I say, for those of you who are actually writing offers and getting them accepted and have listings, do they almost always now need to have an appraisal gap built in there that they're going to pay the difference? Is that true? Pretty standard that they're going to have to pay the difference. So if they don't have additional cash, or they're not willing to pay above the appraised value, then this is not their market either. Okay, it's not their market either. Now you may be able to get them to where it is if they've got the ability and they just don't want to, or don't understand why. You may be able to get them there, but the reality is, yeah, Paula? I'm sorry.
It used to be when somebody was approved for 400,000, you would say, okay, we can look at up to maybe 425,
Yeah.
450.
Yeah.
And find something and then get it. You can't do that anymore.
No.
You have to be looking at 350.
No, because if you're looking at 400, it's going to sell for 4 1/4.
Right, exactly.
So you better be qualified for 4 1/4.
Some idea if the properties, in your opinion, are going to appraise.
Mhm.
You have to have some market knowledge.
Right.
Because.
Absolutely.
Just to change, very change.
Yeah, very different. Paula, what do you want to say or ask?
There is also something between waiting and the advice of something.
FHA loans are.
Okay, let's let the lender address that. Yeah, so there's really no such thing as an appraisal waiver, right? Like the lender can do that on their side, but a buyer cannot waive an appraisal. They can opt, if they're paying cash, not to do an appraisal, but you're not waiving anything because it's not in the contract saying you have to have it. So there's nothing to waive. You have to add the appraisal contingency if you want one and it's cash. If you're getting financing, it's up to the lender whether or not they're going to do an appraisal, and the buyer does not have the right to waive it. We use that term appraisal waiver, but that's not really what it is. What you're writing into the contract is a clause that says that the buyer will pay the difference in the appraised value and the purchase price up to a certain amount, right? So you have to have all the pieces in there. And if you don't know what those are, please go on Murray's Facebook broker forum page, because he puts it in there all the time for people to get that language, to get it right. And insurance is going up, right? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so now what about when you're writing those offers? Okay, you probably need to have an appraisal gap coverage in there. That's pretty darn common right now. It's possible not, but.
We talked to a lot of folks about gifts as well.
Oh, yes.
You can have that.
Yep.
to Help out. So if you have someone that has some cash, we always
Mhm.
mention that, just have that prepared.
Yep.
Kind of cover that appraisal gap.
Yeah, that's great. So if they have a parent or a relative, there's only designated people who can give a gift, right? They have to be certain relations, and they can give a gift to a buyer to help with down payment, and or if they have a gap in there. It does have to be sourced. Yes. If you're giving your son a gift, then they have to source the gift from you to him, and then from you to see where it came from your bank account. Whatever.
So if it's conventional, we don't really.
Oh, not sourcing it on a conventional. Okay.
We do.
Okay.
So if you have that person with mattress monies, and you're doing a conventional loan, you give it to your mom. Put it in the bank, send it directly to title. and-
La 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 la.
I mean, that's one scenario.
Yeah, it could happen, right? It could.
Or if you need the source, you just take it to the casino.
Nobody's putting this in writing, and nobody on here can know.
Bring them in, get a receipt.
Yeah, there you go.
and you're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's a new
That's
one.
it.
I love
That one works.
That's right. You got to be thinking outside the box.
You got it.
Absolutely. Be creative.
Lots of it.
Yeah. Okay, so you've made the offer. You've got some extra cash just in case. Don't always need it, but you've got it in case you need it. What else? Multiple offers. I do want to touch on something. You guys can mention this. So cash is probably most of the time going to win out over financed at the same price and terms if everything else is equal. Many times it is going to. And you can see not all of our deals are cash. We already said 30% of them are. There's 70% that are not. Okay, so it's not always. You're not always going to lose out. And the seller's not always going to select the cash off you. The seller's not always going to select Pam's offer. No, they're not always going to select the cash offer. But it is a thing right now. It is. So how can someone with financing be more competitive? Tony, huh?
Higher EFT.
Oh, higher earnest money deposit.
Cash people that put down 5,000, they find another house that they like better.
And they don't mind losing the 5,000. That's right.
You put down 20 or 30.
Yeah, put down a higher earnest money deposit. That can be more attractive. One thing you should always do, and it goes back to that, I'm going to touch back to the customer experience thing, is communication. Always try and talk to the listing agent when you're making an offer to find out what is important to the seller. Now, if you call Karen Clarkin, he's not going to tell you. So call, that's because he sells 140 homes a year and he doesn't have time, right?
Right.
Call Marissa, his assistant, and ask her. I'm going to help you get around these things, right? Like the big agents may not have time to go through that. Like, you just send in the offer. You know, that's what you're going to hear. Karen, I hope you listen to this. So even though that's the way he feels, that is not the way most listing agents feel. Most listing agents aren't carrying 20 or 30 listings at a time. They do want to have communication with the buyer's agents. But if there are 22 offers coming in, it's hard to talk to everybody. I did one recently, it was 27 offers, and it was hard.
I think Karen
Right.
is asking if there's other offers.
Yeah, yeah, he does not like that. Don't ask him if there's other offers, because there's always other offers now.
Specifics, I think, is a different case.
Specifics, he will. Yeah, and if you text him, he'll probably answer you better, right? And I'm just teasing with him because he always calls me and tells me what agents are doing that they shouldn't do, and it's always stuff like this. So
About this.
You need to follow up.
his head and all the pictures, he pays the fine though. It's worth it. He pays the fine.
He's on, what's that thing?
Facebook,
called?
TikTok.
Yeah, he's
TikTok.
on TikTok now.
I know.
Yeah, he's like everywhere. I'm like, oh my God.
Okay, you guys gotta look him up if you don't know. Karen's my favorite.
Listen,
Okay. Anyway, so just do call. Jan, do you want him to call you and ask anything or not? Okay, Kathy, do you want him to call you and ask? Courtney, do you want him to call you and ask? Deborah, do you want him to call you and ask? Yeah, see, most listing agents are okay with calling and asking them some questions, right? Now, careful not to ask what you need to know. Like they got other people calling them too, so be respectful of that. And don't call them 16 times. Figure it all out at once and call them. Because I've seen that. I've had agents call like 12 times and I'm like, stop. You're not my co-op agent. No, right? So, you know, sometimes you don't want to do that. Okay, so offer, maybe financed. 1 minute on VA in Tidewater. And why VA is a great loan product.
It's a great, I love working with veterans. They get their stuff to you, like they're very organized, so that part of it's great for me. Tidewater is great. I've used it a lot of times. I just had one, the appraisal came back at 580 and I got it raised to 700. So Tidewater is great because even they go back to the appraiser looks at it. The appraiser may have done everything right, but they have a board, they have people that look at it and they can just say, you know what, you're good.
They want the
And
service
they
member to
want it,
get the
yes.
loan to
So it
buy
makes
the
sense.
house.
They will just give you the value.
And so I've
So
had
it's
them,
fantastic. I
it's,
love it.
it's great. So anybody who's afraid, it's called a Tidewater event. It's just when an appraisal comes in low on a VA loan, they can initiate this. And if they do, they ask everybody for information and input to try to raise the value on the
It's taken about a
appraisal.
week, so you
It's
can-
yay. It's yay. No. Okay, good question. Let's,
So, Tidewater is just a reconsideration of value.
it's a reconsideration, yeah.
That's all it is. That's just.
They just have a
it's the
special name for
VA's
it.
Process, so you go back to the VA, you don't go to the appraiser, you go back to VA will give it the appraiser,
Yep.
show them the comps. But the appraiser may say, look, I think the value is this, but then now you have other people within the VA that will look at it and say, okay, market conditions, hey, people are spending 50,000 over, whatever the case is.
Yep.
Sure, we'll just give it a value $50,000 more. And it's just an email. They don't redo the appraisal. They just send you an email saying the value was this, make a copy of it, send it to your underwriter, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
on the
Now we had
VA
a question over here. So ask your questions real quick.
Will say, well, on a conventional, your appraisal will come back in 3 days, VA will take 10 days at least, you know? and,
Not necessarily, no.
No, it's not longer
No.
process.
No.
I don't, I mean, I've had VA loans that have come in, within 1 or 2 days, and it's a lot quicker than.
Yeah,
What is their timeline? Does it have to be 10 days? Is that
No,
the requirement
I
or
think the timeline is 21, but it's like everything.
like
else.
everything else? It just gets in this, it gets in the cycle.
If you're buying a house that's rural and there's no VA appraisers out there, it's gonna take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It may be a little bit harder. If you're buying in a 3-year-old Lennar community and there's lots of comps, then they get them out pretty quick. So you shouldn't have a problem with.
Does it take longer to close the loan? No. Okay. Does it?
So what's the average today to close conventional or FHA or whatever?
About 25.
25 days?
Okay. What other questions do we have about VA? Or any other loan, but I mean, I don't want to turn this whole another hour of loan stuff, but I think a lot of people are misinformed about VA loans. And so sellers don't necessarily consider them when it could very well be their best option.
I actually sold my house last year in Watershed. I had 6 offers on my house within the first week.
Yeah.
Out of all of the offers I actually chose, but being a lender, working for a lender, I chose the VA loan.
You chose the VA loan intentionally.
Right, because I knew it was 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, they were financing 100%. It was guaranteed. And within 11 days, I had my full approval of appraisal. So I had
Yeah.
everything done. And they closed later because they were coming from California, but they could have closed within like 25 days. And
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
So
So is that from a lender perspective, if you're looking at different loan types, what is the likelihood or which one is more likely or less likely to close? Which one is more likely to have an issue along the way or less likely to have an issue along the way? Or can you speak to that?
Most likely it's probably FHA, just because they're,
Most likely not to close.
yeah, not to close, just because. you may
FHA.
have Credit, if your credit's not as good.
There's a reason people are going
Yeah,
FHA,
there's
right?
not a lot of extra
Right.
money, things like that.
Yeah.
So FHA is a little bit harder, but can still get done.
Yep. Of course, of course. What about VA and conventional? Like VA has a very low foreclosure rate, right?
But-
Now this is after the fact, but
But
what
what's
is
great
there?
about VA, so like, I got VA loans approved at like 65% debt to income, so there's a lot of flexibility with VA.
Yeah.
Credit scores, I mean,
yeah, you don't, there's the minimum credit.
yeah, there's no.
Yeah.
So VA is like the best.
Yeah. You guys hear that out there in La La Land? VA is the best.
Realtors don't.
Realtors don't. So if you were working if you guys were working with their buyers and their buyer's VA or any other loan product, but specifically, since we're talking about that, and they are making an offer, would you make a phone call to the listing agent or take a phone call from the listing agent to talk about that customer and or their product?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
The other
See,
thing is-
use your lenders, buyers agents, use your lenders. You can even get them to be proactive. And if there's a house your customer made an offer on, they will many times pick up the phone and call the listing agent, say, hey, I just want to check in. A buyer that I'm working with has made an offer on your property. I'm here for you. Have any questions, call me. They're highly qualified. They're this, they're that, whatever. And let them do the work for you. That's what the vendors are here to support and do their jobs with their customers, but also to support us.
the other thing
Don't
I-
work with lenders that
the other
don't
thing I
make you
would
look
say
good.
is if your seller's a veteran, they usually like to sell to other veterans. They
Yeah.
gravitate, they will take that offer even if it's not as high sometimes.
Right.
To a point,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Yeah.
yes, they do like to sell to other veterans.
Great. Now, one more thing, if you're financing and you're competing with multiple offers, you have cash, could you also maybe just offer a little higher price than you were planning? Maybe you pay a little more for the seller to take your financed offer instead of a cash offer. Right? You may think, okay, well, it's listed at 400. The highest we're going to go is 410, but maybe you're willing to go to 415 or 420. How much difference does $10,000 make in your monthly payment? And on the interest rate, 50 bucks, 60
About
bucks,
50, a little bit over 50, right?
50, 60 bucks. You might, you might, you might. Yeah. So, but there's things you can do, right? What else? What else can you do, Jan, since you didn't send me your answers? What else can you do?
I'm looking for answers.
Jan, you've sold more homes than anybody in this room.
I was trying to find it.
Y'all ask her how many homes she sold, or her team has sold.
How many homes?
How many? Yeah,
Over 1,050. I don't know how many.
So if you
Just a
had a listing and it did not say VA, but I had a VA buyer, would you, I could call you up and say, I'm gonna put an offer, but he's VA, would you
Mine
tell me
will
that?
always say VA anyway. But
Well, okay, what if you
I
wanted to-
try to encourage my sellers to accept a person as opposed to a investor or somebody. I mean, people are having trouble finding homes to live in. So I always encourage them and I say at the end of the day, cash versus finance, if they're a well-qualified person, you get the same money.
that's right. The net's the same.
And this person's more invested.
Amen.
They want to live there. So they're more likely to work through things with you. So, and.
It sounds like you might have influence with your sellers.
Well, it's prepare them for the market.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Prepare them for the market. But
Right on.
I get tired of all the investment women all the time and people can't live in homes. That's not good for neighborhoods. Right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Right.
nothing wrong with tenants. They're good people too. But honestly, people need to be able to build a sense of community with people who live in their neighborhoods and live in their homes and care about the community.
Yep.
So.
And a lot of our HOAs do not allow for all these investors to come in and buy and then lease them and rent them out. And so now the HOAs are a mess because they're not,
The HOA.
you know, that says you can only, you can't lease a house after you've been living there for a year, but the investors are buying so fast, they're leasing them right away. So they do it, so.
I don't run into too much of that, but HOAs in general feel like the quality of the neighborhood is going down because there's many rentals in there.
Yeah.
And then they'll start to limit
Yeah.
the opportunity
Yeah.
for renters at all.
So I don't
And
know.
you don't want that, but there are good quality renters too.
Of course.
Some
Yeah.
are good. But I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, please.
I had a buyer who was well qualified, 20% down, no extra appraisal gap money, nothing, we couldn't get through. But I think there are probably companies out there that you can, that will
Yes.
buy the house cash and then you buy it back from them.
Yes.
I want to know what experience anybody's had with that.
I've had one buyer do that 6 years ago. And
That was probably Home Partners.
it was Home Partners, and at the end of 12 months, they wanted 20% over the purchase price, which was over the appraised price of the
Well,
home.
what I'm hoping for is somebody.
There are some new products. Have you done one?
Well, I have, I
I have a buyer right now in Ribbon / we have a listing that's closing in Ribbon. It's been, especially with our listing, we're closing next week. It's been a really easy process. If anything, the seller's my parents, it's one of their properties and they're annoying. I'm like, geez, sign your.
Yes, be careful working with your parents.
Yeah. So anyways,
You can always give them back to me.
So yeah, so there's two things. So the first thing is with like for like the buyer, right? It's basically just a backup. Actually, one of my other listings, we accepted Ribbon, but for inspection reasons, we ended up going with somebody else. Besides the point, the buyer just decided they got cold feet. However, you know, that agent basically came and it's a guarantee. So for my sellers, it was like a guarantee, like they're going to buy the property, whether the home doesn't appraise, whether they can't get the financing, X, Y, and Z, Ribbon's going to buy it. Now, if they don't buy it, the buyer will still have to pay, I think it's like a 1.5, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, yeah, if they don't buy it, they still have to pay like a percentage. And if they do buy it, then obviously I think it's like 6 months or something, yeah, 1%. Yeah, if they do, and you have like 6 months to buy it back from them. And
Could you buy it like in 30 days?
oh yeah, you can buy it whenever. Another one that's also great too is knock. I've done that multiple times. I've done knock multiple times. What I've really done with knock more than anything is a lot of my sellers have to buy and sell at the same time. But it's been a wonderful program. Knock will go and they'll buy the house for you. So you know, a lot of sellers like, oh, I'm worried. What if I can't find the house or X, Y, and Z? They don't want to do a lease back or whatever. I had a seller specifically do this about 2 or 3 months ago. We went, found the house, Knock bought it for them, and then they sold their house. Of course, we sold it in like 30 days. You have 60 days, or not 60 days, 6 months to sell the house. Now, when the market changes, that might be a little bit harder, right? But in this market, we sold their house in 30 days. And once again, it was like a 1.5%. All they had to pay for Knock was 1.5% for, you know, this transaction. And it was a really great program. I think she just moved though. I had a really great contact with Knock. My brother.
And they pay their own closing costs and all that.
Yep.
The buyer.
They do. When they bought it, they did. Yeah, basically everything. I think the only thing that my buyer had to pay something like a small fee at the closing table, but they basically did everything. It was very, very small.
It might be 2 cents of title fees. When selling for those sellers.
I don't know. What I mean, it made a lot of sense. But I can send you. I don't know if she's working for. I haven't done it in like 2 or 3 months. My brother thinks that she moved companies. But I will look into both. Both are really, really great. Because we use Knock and Ribbon.
Okay.
Yeah, Knock is so those of you online, if you can't hear everything Courtney's saying, she was talking about Knock and Ribbon and ways to help buyers purchase a home before they sell the home they're in.
Yeah. So they still buy it. I think it's. I can't remember now if we wrote it in Knock. I think we still wrote it in my buyer's name. I can't remember. Maybe Knock did write it in their name. I don't remember honestly. It's been like it's been 3 months.
The Ribbon offer that I received had Ribbon /
Yeah.
the buyer.
That's maybe what it was, like half and half. What's the thing, like whether you do one or the other, obviously you'll have like a lender, you know what I mean? Like anybody who's gonna help you and they'll guide you through all the steps. And you do have to get certified, I believe. At least it's not going to get Knock certified to do that. Ribbon, my brother's the one who does all
Yeah,
the.
you just sign up.
Yeah, it's pretty
really-
simple. It's like
Yeah.
Like review.
Yeah.
Watch a video.
So this goes to thinking outside the box, right? There's lots of tools out there. You just got to learn about them.
Okay.
Find out. Ask an experienced agent, right? Ask a lender. Get in more information. Jan, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's what I was looking.
That's what you were looking for? Okay, good. What else? So a few things, I know we have gone way over and I appreciate you guys sticking around and I love all the interaction and participation. So thank you very much for that. I got a couple scripts for you because I know you guys love scripts. Other than blank, is there any reason why you wouldn't, and you could say blank, and this one I said list with me today, right? So what could that be? Other than price, other than you don't like me. So we all know some agents that people probably don't like, but they trust them to sell their home, right? You don't have to like them. So Other than commission, is there any reason why you wouldn't list today? Other than needing to do some repairs to your home, is there any reason why you wouldn't list with me today, right? You can use that script in so many scenarios. Other than having to pay over list price, is there any reason why you wouldn't buy this home? Other than the red dining room, is there any reason why you wouldn't buy this home, make an offer on this home today, right? That's a great script. You can use it for lots of different things. Where will you go? I didn't answer this for you. We have never had a customer, a seller, go homeless. Now you have to be able to make sure you can say it. That's right. I've never had a seller go homeless. They all freak out. Where am I going to go? What am I going to buy? What if I have to sell my home first before I can buy another one? What do I do in the interim? What if we can't do a simultaneous closing? What? They are so worried. I got one right now. They've got 2 horses and a donkey and some cats, and they're so worried about what do they do if they can't do a simultaneous closing. And I said, and the best script is, what will you do? Where will you go? Let them figure it out. When they solve their own problem, it's going to be easier for them to follow, right? Now, that doesn't mean you don't give them ideas. You do. You help them out. Say, well, is there a family member or a friend you could stay with? Could you maybe stay in an Airbnb? Would you like to go on a 60-day cruise? Would you go, I had a customer do that once. I had a customer do that once. They sold their house, went on a cruise till their house was ready. Okay, great. That's awesome. Even my customer with the animals right now, they've got family in Ohio who has land and can pasture the horses and donkey until they find their new place in Tennessee or wherever it is they're going to go. So give them some ideas, but let them mull it over and figure it out, because then they own the solution. And it gives them, empowers them. Let's say that. Other than price, what other terms are most important to the sellers? Of course, price is important. What else is important? Closing date, right? Lease back, anything. If you don't sell, or alternatively buy, if you're talking to a buyer, if you don't sell your home now, what will that do for you and your family? If you don't buy now, what will that do for you and your family? Because, right, some people get frustrated and they want to give up, or they can't see the future, they can't see the path forward, so they just give up. People naturally shut down rather than face the obstacle. So sometimes you have to use pain instead of pleasure to help push them beyond to get to where they need to be. Now, if they don't want to sell, you said that earlier, that's why I was laughing. You can't make somebody sell who doesn't want to sell. But if they want to, but they're afraid because they don't know what comes next, that's where we can really help them. We can help them see the alternatives. If you were to find out later that someone else bought this house for $400,000 and you're offering $395,000, how would that make you feel? Like, again, it's the pain. It's you can use pleasure, you can use pain to move people. Pain sometimes is the one that it really takes. They want to avoid pain more than they want to go towards pleasure. Kind of weird, but human nature. Some resources for you. Realtor associations. You can get lots of market data from GTAR, from FAR, from NAR. So the Greater Tampa Realtors, the Florida Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors, Keller Williams training and resources, local, regional, and national. Stellar MLS puts out stats all the time. It has great information and tools in there that you can use. Experienced agents, gosh, those of you who are less experienced got a whole bunch of information from experienced agents today. They are that's what I've always loved about this company. The experienced agents are so willing to help and give you that knowledge, to share it with you. Other training, coaching, podcasts. If you are struggling, especially with lead generation and in this market, I highly encourage you to listen to James Shaw every morning at 8 o'clock. You can find him on Facebook at Shift Pivot Ahead. Pivot Shift, which is it? Shift Pivot Ahead or Pivot Shift Ahead? Pivot. Okay. He is awesome. He goes through the Shift book just page by page, but talks. He's got thousands of people following that now. He is funny. He is real, and he will give you actual things you can do to go out and get listings and handle objections.
I think it was $100,000.
James Shaw, Shift, look for Shift, or Pivot, look for Pivot. I think it's under Pivot. But there's a lot of other things too. Vendor partners, use your vendor partners. They're great resources. You see, I mean, just in class, like I didn't set them up for any of this, but I'm going to use them because they're here, right? They sponsored this and for a reason, because they want to earn your business. And I'm going to use them because they're in the classroom and they know a lot of things I don't know. I know a little bit about a lot of stuff, but not a lot about a little stuff. All right. Anyway, hey, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for hanging in here for the long class. And if you need anything, there's my information.